Over time, if we continually update it, we can remove all the rough edges, and we can, fix every problem and balancing issue, whatever. But actually, day one, we didn't want to make a perfect game. We didn't actually even want to make a game that you could play forever. Like maybe again through updates and things like that, maybe we can nurture that, right?
And when we ship the game, not everything will be possible, but this is a game I think we're going to be making for quite a while, even after it comes out.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for coming back to Cobra TV. This is a podcast clip discussing what could possibly be and next, what improvements they could possibly make. Rayrod gives a big oversight in this podcast clip. Is there an alternate build to the game with features that you guys want? Possibly old build test? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Okay, so a lot of us are wondering, and we thought about this for a while, especially ever since we started talking about this next update, is what could it possibly be? How long are they, people say, okay, well, they've been working on this new update for years, so it's got to be significant. And I've always said, what if it's been longer than a year? What if they released what they thought was a stable version, a stable build of the game, and that there's another build, the build that we've seen them play, and it wasn't stable? And what if they've been working on that build this entire time? And what if that build is actually the build that has the rotating planets in it, even though they said they took it out, and they probably did even in that build? But my point is, if you cannot find evidence that there was actually rotating planets in the build that we have right now, that's proof that there is another build of the game that you don't see. I don't see it. It's just laying around somewhere. Yeah. Right? Or am I wrong?
Ray's been...
I think you're...
sorry. Ray's been, when we were talking and Ray's kind of pointed this out, like there's like a lot of stuff in the files that's just like not in the game, like just flat out just not there, but they're just in the files. So I would just not be surprised if Cobra, you were completely right.
Yeah, can I share something?
Sure.
Okay, so since you're speaking about like certain mechanics that were kind of present pre-release, I actually compiled a list of some things that I've discovered in my time of data mining on, on the PC version, and also from studying Hello Games. Like, it's actually quite maddening, like a lot of the stuff that was present going on, just seen in those trailers and in general. And I do have an idea of of kind of what happened, but it's just theory. But these things that are written down, it's factual.
Okay.
I said, apart from the literal hundreds of thousands of pre-release mechanics that are scattered and still existing within the files, the E3 pre-release biomes, most of them are still existing and are completely alien to the game's current biome structure. They were partially scripted, but mostly procedural. The rules that also were set per biome were more advanced and would completely transform this game if they were still using those methods. A few of the things done through the pre-release biomes were they specified the amount of life per planet, they specified the kind of unique weather per planet, more detailed multi-weather, unique resource rules, unique building density rules, unique common, uncommon, and rare substance rules, more detailed color palettes, unique rules for water visuals and effects, and underwater per biome, including custom underwater and cave heavy air, unique more varied terrain per biome with particular seeds. They had specified more advanced creature rules and appearances per biome that is far more complex than what the game currently uses. The amount of variety per biome is about 5 times larger per biome than all of the biomes in the game put together right now. The pop-in fade-in was heavily reduced. There were more things to do per biome. They had advanced rules for AI. They had unique sentinel rules, unique trading rules. They specified designated planetary sizes. They had unique flyby rules. They had multi-biome effects, beach biomes, mountain biomes, various underwater biomes, crystal underwater biomes, various cave biomes per biome, rock biomes, dirt biomes, air biomes, liquid floating floor on the water biomes, underwater buildings, and a lot of other stuff. Those are just a few mechanics that I discovered from looking at only one file, but the 2013 through 2015 build also had very high quality clouds, which were not pixelated right now. There was no noise in the sky. They had more varied space colors, more varied and immersive space heavier, more things going on in space, procedural factions. There's data for that still in the executable, actually. Overhauled space AI. There were full in-space wars going on actually on top of the planets. I recently re-enabled on-planet space battles. Not referring to like fighting other ships, shooting, but like actual battles going on in front of you on the planets. They had multiple kinds of crescent worlds flowing at the same time. They had multiple kinds of eclipses. They had overhauled atmospherics that are now disabled at the moment, but you can re-enable them and configure them to be dynamic. They had extreme weather biomes, a subtle depth of field that was dynamic. The vignette was very subtle. The water shader was better. It was more reflective and more natural looking, and it wasn't pixelated. They had walking NPCs. Space stations were possible to hover in the atmosphere or on planetary surfaces like that atlas, the atmospheric atlas that I recently made. The weather was more detailed. There were a lot of more varied spaceships. Some spaceships had a higher resolution and more detailed textures. There was a way to view your creature discoveries in its own unique page within the inventory and open up a pop-up box for them and view the model in full screen with details and information. The galactic map had more going on inside of it. The lighting overall looked more natural and more realistic and still gave you the vibe of walking in a painterly sci-fi novel. There were more kinds of terrain textures. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of props and flora scattered in the files right now that are not utilized. Ships were able to explode and hit the surface and break apart and shatter into pieces with a particular animation. There were certain iconic ships in the trailer that are currently not enabled, almost done. Freighters slowly move on planets and there were battles. The terrain was a lot more varied. The textures were more detailed. It sounds like
breathe. Hold on. Take a breath.
List.
Breathe for a second. Just calm down. Wait.
Inhale, exhale.
Yes. Take a breather and then restart.
I'm dying.
Okay.
I'm dying.
So the
Imagine
textures.
Hello Games is here right now. Sorry.
So it's another game, basically.
The sound effects and in-game music was more detailed and expanded than it currently is right now. I'm excited for next. But there was actual planetary rotation, like you were saying earlier, in IGN footage at the playthrough of LpoLi 5 and the Infinite Worlds trailer at exactly 1 minute. There is actual data for orbital mechanics. The asteroids use actual terrain and were all procedural. The atmospherics and lighting and sky colors allowed for bioluminescent type biomes. The terrain generation when flying down to planets at times could be more subtle, but they did make improvements on that. Taking off in your ship didn't skyrocket you, but it felt more natural. I actually found what in the game handles that after a year of looking, so that, like the Orion V footage with the subtle takeoff, I got that working. Sentinel drones didn't explode and disappear after destroying them, but they fell to the ground and rolled away. I restored that. The user interface in the HUD had certain mechanics, like different ones, and a lot more going on. The weapons had more mechanics to them. It goes on, but those are just a few things I discovered. And honestly, it's not even 1% of the things that I've discovered, and it's not even 1% of the things that were going on in that build. I tell you, if you look back at those awesome trailers, and to me, it just gets me excited. I'm hoping that we see these things fully fleshed out, and I respect Hello Games, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But here's the thing: if you look, the more that I watch those trailers as someone who restores E3 and pre-release mechanics as a living, because I'm creating a modernized E3 build with my own twist to it, the more I watch the trailers, the more I see things that I've never seen before, and I've seen them hundreds of times, like many other people. And the more I watch them, the more I realize how much I don't know and have yet to discover. But, I just study Hello Games, study the files, study everything that's going on, and just remake it.
It's really amazing how, we're all exploring No Man's Sky, but Rayrod over here is exploring it in such a different way, in a more intimate way. And he's seeing things that, seeing information at least, that we've never seen. It's almost like watching the movie The Matrix, and the guy was like, what's this? And he goes, oh, it's The Matrix, and it's just a bunch of numbers. And he goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, I don't even see the numbers anymore. I see blondes, brunettes, blah, blah, blah. So it's almost like, that's what Rayrod reminds me of. But my point, okay, well, the smoking gun, I think out of everything that Rayrod said, is that he does not see. I think this is what you said. You don't see like evidence in our build to be able to have the rotating and orbiting planets. So therefore, that tells me that there's another build of the game. Now, I'm not a game developer, but does that seem like that's the case, Rerod?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, from my experience in like data mining, I just want to knock out a few misconceptions real quick. One is there's a misconception in regard to the PC and PS4 version lacking certain things due to hardware requirements. But actually, if you look at the Araya V Dense Rainforest footage, that video was recorded on a PlayStation 4. So it's not a performance thing. What it all boils down to is the way that the biomes are set up, and often GLSL shader related things and other things that are going on that determine the performance of the game. Because I'm getting 100 frames per second in a dense forest after optimizations that I've made, and it can surely be done on the PS4. In fact, it already was done pre-release. But in regard to what you said about the planetary rotation, like me not seeing data for that, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there. I mean, in fact, there's actual data from the very first beta version of No Man's Sky present in the files pre-2013. It's just everything is scattered all abroad in the files with little to no explanation in regard to how they had it working and how they did it. So I kind of figured these things out and role play with deductive reasoning. Why did Hello Games do this or this that way or this way? Why didn't they do this? And put the pieces together and search through the executable, test different things to try to get these things working and find them manually. It's like a treasure hunt. So there probably is something for it somewhere. It's just the scope of everything is so big, and one thing usually connects to another. Like, for example, in regard to like those atmospherics that they had pre-release, the thing is, like, the groundwork for it is still there. It's just that they took out the template. You know, like, I'm pretty sure you know that I've been like looking at concept art paintings and E3 screenshots and stills and replicating those atmospherics by real-time executable hacking and also utilizing Python scripting, you know, that I'm studying right now and all that stuff. Well, here's the thing. What I'm doing that with, I'm pretty sure that back then they had another file with their own kind of templates that were exactly used in the trailers, but right now they're using something completely different, which is what's used in vanilla, the base game right now, which is different than what they had back then. So I have to like pretty much recreate it from scratch based off of what I'm seeing, like panning in the game with XML code. But here's the thing. Like, even though I have to recreate that from scratch, it's possible that somewhere in the files that there could be something that could make that rotation work, but you probably have to do improvisation and get a little creative and do it yourself, unless it really is something that they scrapped. But from my experience, I haven't really known Hello Games to just remove stuff. It's like everything is just there, you just don't know where it is, so you have to find it. And I think I'm pretty much one of the only people who's actually taking on the burdening task of finding all of these things and trying to restore them. I'm about like 8,000 hours into it, 10,000 actually, because I've been planning what I wanted to do with No Man's Sky since 2013, forming ideas. And it wasn't always about E3, you know, because I didn't know how it was going to launch, but reworking games is what I do for a living as a gameplay design artist.
That's awesome.
You got a donation.
Yeah, spell check. Thank you so much. Hashtag spell check in the chat. What a co-bro. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, spell check.
Did you see what he said?
And
He's like, nerds.
Nerds?
He's like, nerds.
So check this out. Okay. I think it's cool that Cyrus is on the show, because Cyrus, aren't you the person that called? Maybe you're not, but aren't you the person that called and were telling me about the hidden files, the grays?
The Grays?
Or is that somebody else?
Yes,
yeah.
I did talk to you about that a while ago.
Yeah, okay.
I also created some art with, like, teasing the other races, basically, way before.
If you go back and you look at those, because I was watching one of my older videos because someone had pointed something out to me. If you go back and you look at that video where I talked about the Grays, those are actually the Travelers.
Yes, they are. Like those cat-like features. And
yeah. Definitely. So that's pretty cool. So, you know, when you're thinking about things that are evident in the game files, I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't be hard to miss something as big as orbiting planets. Maybe this is just me trying to make myself believe that there is another build that they're working on that we haven't seen yet. I think that's what it could be, and that's, you know, that makes me feel more comfortable or more excited, actually, that there's a different build that they're getting ready to release.
This for me, and from what Rayrod has just been explaining right now, it seems like it has something to do with synchronization as a whole, right? Because if you think of orbits, time, clocks, multiplayer, all those things come in line together. And it is perhaps possible that this game in its static space physics mode is where they can put all these features, modules, test them out, while in parallel they're actually working on a sort of larger scope build, right?
I agree with that.
Which features all these dynamic elements.
And let me tell you something else. Hold on one second. Now, let me tell you something else I believe what you just said. And okay, so you know how they added this wisps, how we're glitches, and how we're the orbs floating around, and you know, we think that that's their big step into multiplayer, right? They didn't work very hard on that as far as, you know, okay, the place, it's great. That's not what I mean. That came out wrong. It was probably something that was really quick and easy for them to implement, and was not as a hard of worked on feature as we think. And so therefore these updates were probably really simple for them while they're working on a bigger build. Now the orbs, they just use that from some already used asset that was already in the game, because those used to be the planet markers that were.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
in the portal.
Right. So all they did was just take an already used asset and said, okay, you know what? This looks good. Let's make it to where they look like these, and we'll write some lore behind it. So that convinces me that they're heavily working on another build, and they're making
this
these
is more
updates.
filler.
And
Yes.
you know, Cobra,
There.
I agree.
something that you said, kind of like, yeah, in regard to like there potentially being another build, like something that's probably worth mentioning is, remember I was talking about, like, you know, in regard to like the visual appearance of like the older builds being drastically different.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing, like, you know how I mentioned like the multiple eclipses and multiple kinds of crescent worlds and all these crazy things that they had flowing? It is there's no doubt that after all of this time that there have been numerous visual improvements. It's awesome, like how hard Hello Games has been working. But like, you know, that back then they had a lack of anti-aliasing for one thing. But here's the thing, they have like, I've seen like 20 different iterations of the Crescent worlds, for example, that they had back then. And some of the pictures, if you dig deep enough, I'll send you one of them later, I guess. Like, it's incredible, and it looks drastically different than, you know, what is right now. Not saying that to be negative, of course, but I'm just pointing it out. But the fact that they had 20 different iterations of Crescent worlds, for example, it's just with that alone, it could possibly indicate that they have different builds. I'm not saying that that's a definite. Like, it would actually make sense that all of this time that they had something else that they were working on, but in the meantime, to hold us over, that they were gradually filling us in with new content prior to what is next.
Yeah, I agree. And also, there was an interview that it's not an interview; it's a speech that Sean Murray is giving at the ESA, and he talked about this is the weekend before the game was purchasable, and he talked about the roadmap of what the updates are going to be. He talked about base building. He talked about land rovers. He talked about all that stuff and freighters. And this is before we even knew what they were going to give us as far as updates. All right. This is before the game was on the shelf. So that also tells me that they had some of this stuff maybe already kind of ready to go, you know, and that by me saying that kind of makes me think that they didn't spend too much time on these updates, more like somebody just using them, or somebody there optimizing these in a build and making sure it worked, while the other guys worked on what they wanted the game to be in the final vision?
There's stuff that we haven't announced yet, but that right now we are working on things. Some of our most requested features, like being able to own freighters, and being able to start building little things on planets and stuff, which is kind of a hugely requested feature. We wanted to get out day one what we see as almost like the explorer's route, right? Something that will keep you going from planet to planet to planet and focus our game around that. But once the game is out, people are enjoying that. There are other ways you could play. You could stay on a planet for days and days and weeks and build a little base and stuff like that. So we want to encourage people to do that. You could decide to become a trader, and we want to flesh that out, allow people to have freighters and things like that, and allow people to do trading at a much bigger scale.